when you've got this structure in the middle, this is the core idea. They have a really good intro and a really good outro. The outro preceded by the key message. So a good intro, which is different from others, followed by the key idea of the presentation with the three spokes, and then a really nice outro with a call to action so people know what you're expecting them to do.
Hello, and welcome to episode 116 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we'll air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave a review. That would mean a lot to me. Tell a friend about the podcast. Help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. John Doorbar teaches people to speak confidently. His newest training program is called Speak with Quiet Confidence, the presenting program for inspired and introverted business professionals. He is an international presenting specialist, management teacher, and business coach. He's also the author of 3 books, and his latest one is called What Happy People Know. In his international seminars, he helps people to turn from being nervous and fearful into entertaining and impactful performers. John studied at the University of Oxford, where he got his master's degree. He also completed training at Cambridge University and has a teacher training qualification from the University of Durham. Okay, I'm excited to welcome my guest, John. John, welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast.
Thank you, David. It's very kind of you to invite me. I appreciate it very much.
All right, we're going to get into your work. You've spent your life teaching communication skills. We're going to get into that. Before we do, tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your journey, and then what caused you to spend your life teaching others communication skills.
Yeah, well, I suppose it started when I was actually quite little. I was actually very, very interested in learning in general. And I had lots and lots of different interests. I was hugely interested in reading, and I also loved sport, and I was keen to get an idea of how the world works. I was quite interested and curious in lots of things. I had a brother. And he was quite academic, and we sort of competed a bit. He was a lot older than me, and it was very interesting. We were in the same school, the same primary school. And one day, the headmaster of the school said to me, or at least I think he said to me, "John, you'll never be as good as your brother." And this had a fascinating effect on me. I suppose I could have said, okay, that's it then. Or a rude word beginning with F and ending in K, you. We'll see what actually happens. And I took the second route. So I got really into studying. But I was fascinated by the effect that what this thinking about this Mr. Riley's comment when I was about 4 years old, sitting on the chair listening to him, had as an effect on my actions, really. So that was a really important thing. And then I went on to do my A-levels, which were the exams to get through to go to Oxford, to university. So I was very honoured to be able to study there. And then I became a teacher. I was interested in teaching. And then I came to Europe. I came to Europe. I went to Italy, and then from Italy I moved to Germany, and this is many years ago now. And I was interested in being able to support people to help them to remember more effectively, to help them in their work and life in general. That's a long answer to your question, but that sort of gives you a bit of information about the background, David.
Yeah. So tell us just a little bit more about how specifically do you teach and train on communication skills? What's the work that you do?
Yeah. I'm focusing almost exclusively now on helping introvert professionals who are creative and influential to get more confidence when they're presenting and building up their own entrepreneurial business. Because introverts tend to be reluctant to get out there and show themselves and to show how good they are, because introverts have great skills as extroverts too. My aim is to help them to be able to feel themselves when they present and to be able to find out what their I suppose Simon Sinek would say their big why, so that they know exactly why they're doing what they're doing. And this gives them a really good basis on which to build the I like to see it as a structure of the why, and then the who, the people who are actually there teaching or selling to, and then the what, which is on this level here, and then the how, which are the techniques. And they also learn some practical techniques to be able to work more effectively.
Yeah. So your focus on introverts is fairly recent.
Yes.
What made you change to focus on helping introverts?
Yeah, it is really recent. It's only about 3 or 4 months old, let's say.
Wow.
And I was the sort of catalyst for it came from a really great coach who I've been working with. And the original plan was for me to develop a really good presentation just to present to whoever would listen to it. But we didn't really go to the deeper motivations which I had for talking or speaking to people at all. And then we delved a bit deeper and we looked into my background and found that there was a very interesting change, which was not gradual. It was very sudden, where I was I had always been nervous, even when I was teaching people how to present in companies in 13 different countries. I used to get up in the morning and think, oh, how am I going to get through this day? And so I suppose when I was working with Howard, it became crystal clear to me that there was one moment where I moved from being really, really, really nervous and afraid to not being afraid. And I thought, this is really weird and great at the same time. And so I thought it would be good to be able to teach other people how that actually works.
And how did you figure out that you were introvert yourself?
I was super shy. And just a little story. I don't know whether I've told you this story before, David, but when I was probably about 7, I remember we had guests who came to our home. They rang on the bell, and I was really quick, but I didn't answer the door. I ran quickly upstairs, along the landing, along the corridor, into my room, closed the door, locked it, and into a wardrobe where I could hide safely with my teddy bear, and then I listened intently to think, oh God, when are these people actually going to leave? So that's when I first realized I was really, really shy.
And then was there anything that helped you to embrace your introversion?
Yeah, I was very fortunate that I was very we had a really loving family. My mum and dad were very loving. I had a brother who was always very supportive. So I was very lucky. And lots of friends. And because I was so into sport, I did a lot of team games. And so I was sort of integrated into the team. And the neighbors, we had really nice neighbors. So I didn't really feel left out. So I was really very fortunate in that respect. Um, just to add a point, because my mum was really quite depressed. I think this introvert, and she was very introverted too. I think this introversion was something which rubbed off a bit from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You recently also wrote a book. It's called What Happy People Know:
Mm,
Find Mental Health, Feel More Enthusiastic and Optimistic, Be More Confident.
mm.
And I've been enjoying your book. What caused you to write this? And tell us what it's about.
Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks for actually reading it. I appreciate that. Um, well, I mentioned a bit earlier that I'd had this real strong fear of doing practically anything in front of people, and that could have been friends when I went out to a party, could have been actually teaching in front of a group. It didn't really matter. I was never really able to relax, and um, and I felt pretty nervous. I was very, not only nervous, but really, really quite depressed. And I had horrible thoughts in my mind. And I had a mission. I had a mission to feel better. And over the years, I took every type of course possible to be able to improve this situation. And I did coaching with some really wonderful coaches, some very very well-known coaches, and I was spending lots of money on this self-development training, and it didn't really work. Apart from TM, transcendental meditation, did help me to calm down. I still do it now, and it's really really good. So that was the one thing that did help me, at least twice a day, and I was really in a state where I was not very happy at all. And I was exploring on the internet, and I came across a gentleman, a guy called Dr. Jack Pransky. Dr. Jack Pransky was one of um, the people who was in the forefront of a way of looking at life, a way of teaching people how our experience of life actually works. Now that sounds a bit weird to say that, but I'll just explain in a nutshell what I learned from Jack, and that is we often think that something happens outside in our world, and then we feel good or bad about it. You know, we buy a fancy car, we feel great for a bit. We get shouted at by the boss, so we feel rubbish for a couple of hours. And what I noticed was that there can be two people in exactly the same life situation who are experiencing the same things, but they have a different experience of life. Their feeling about their situation is different. And I thought, this is weird. And this is what I learned on Jack's course that our experience of life is not from what actually happens, but it's from we're looking at it through a filter, which is the thinking which we have about it. And the thinking which we have about it has a really strong effect on the feelings that are generated. And so the thinking is one of the three aspects of what is known to be the three principles. And one is mind, the other one is consciousness, and the other one is thought. Mind has to do with the energy which our universe is made up of, part of which we are part of that. That's been scientifically corroborated by many different scientists. So that's the consciousness, the mind, and then you have consciousness. Consciousness is a power which gives reality to thought. So that means that thoughts come through our minds, and either we let them go right through, or consciousness is mixed with these thoughts, and this generates a feeling, either positive or negative. And the consequence of that, of course, is if we have a positive feeling about life, then the things which we do are different than if we're influenced by negative feelings. I hope that made sense, David. It took me 7 years for me actually for the penny to drop here, but some people have this wonderful penny which drops in about 10 minutes. But it's certainly worth looking into and reflecting on.
How did that change you, learning these three principles?
First of all, it showed me that I'm not in any way affected by what other people think about me or what they say to me in a presentation or whenever. So what they say is related to their background. Maybe they've had a bad day, and so they maybe take it out on the nearest vertical creature, namely me. So that was really important. And the other thing is that everybody's doing the best that they can on the level of thinking that they're at the moment. So if people are on a low level of thinking, a lower level of consciousness, not thinking, sorry, a lower level of consciousness, it means that they can't access the inherent creativity that we have as people. And so they tend to have low energy, they move slowly, they lose interest, and then their consciousness goes up, and then they have more enthusiasm, more life, more spirit. And I mean, this goes up all the time. So I'm not talking about one group of people who are always on a low level of consciousness or another who are on a high level, because during the day, crazy things happen. And so my level of consciousness goes down. I think, oh God, what's happening here? And then I realize, it will change. And if I know that the thinking changes, it means that I'm more optimistic for something else, some other thought coming into my mind. And so and it means that from a teaching point of view, from a presenting point of view, I do my thing. I have a very clear idea that I want to support and help people. I want to help them get over their feeling that being an introvert is a bit like having some sort of incurable disease, which I don't believe. And we talked about it when we chatted a month or so ago, David. And my belief is that introversion is a bit like it's a bit of a myth. It's a myth that's based upon the thinking and the input that we've got from our adults, the bigger people, as we've grown up. That's a bit controversial, but hope you don't mind.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of myths that go with it. I mean, to me, being an introvert means we're a deep thinker, or some people feel things deeply. It's not shyness. You can overcome shyness, but the deep thinking part is what makes us brilliant, and you're not going to overcome that, nor should you. But definitely, there's some messages that we receive that make us lose our confidence, and so there's a lot of that going around. That's how I see it. But we're deep thinkers, and that's a good thing. It's not going to change, nor should we want it to. But we don't have to be shy. We can have all the confidence of the world and be an introvert. And I know some very outspoken introverts. And so
yes.
So again, you've been teaching communication all your career. What do you love about doing that, and where did this passion come from?
Well, I think the passion has come. I suppose it started. The real passion started when I realized that there was nothing wrong with me.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with me, and nothing wrong with other people either. It's just that they've been immersed in a background which has not been supportive to them. So that's one thing. And the other thing, it came directly as a result of learning about where our experience of life comes from. So not being screwed up when things happen, but being able to step back a bit and think, okay, what's happening here? I'm not saying that negative things don't happen. They do. But when they happen, I don't get as, let's say, emotionally involved as I would have done before, and get into a gigantic deep black hole. So that's the experience which I have. So it means that when I'm teaching, the reason I love the teaching is because I know deep down that other people can benefit from learning this. And so it gives me a good feeling to know that, and it gives me enthusiasm, energy, and a good connection with the people. So, I suppose I feel that I'm really helping at the end of the day.
And what makes a good presenter? What makes a good presentation?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's a lot to that.
Yeah, no, I think I would sort of boil it down into three key ideas. One is being able to set up a good well, let me look at some wonderful research by Aristotle. Aristotle has this pyramid, and the pyramid is really, really great. He talks about pathos. Pathos has to do with the atmosphere that comes with the emotion that you bring in. So if you bring in a really emotional story, then the people are on the edge of their seat. So this is a really important aspect. The second one is what he called ethos. And ethos has to do with the standing which you have in the eyes of the people who you're speaking to. So it could be the reputation, it could be that you have a doctorate, It could be that you're a medical doctor. It could be that something amazing has happened to you, so you have a big story behind you. Many things, but that's really important. It sort of puts you in a position where people are willing to listen to you. I think I'd put it that way. And the third one is the logos, which are the words that you choose. The words could be positive or negative. They could be emotionally charged or boring. It could be that the register is so high, the level of formality, that nobody gets what you're talking about, because you are not able to put yourself as a specialist in other people's position, maybe as more, lay people. So I think that if you're able to bring these together, the logos, the ethos, and the pathos, this very important emotional side, the words themselves, and the reputation which you bring, then there's a good chance that the presentation will go down well.
And I think something I've learned about what you're saying is whether it be a large presentation in front of a large conference, or you're presenting just to a small group at work, you're presenting for a reason, because you have some expertise, and expertise could be in a lot of different things, but you're presenting because you have some expertise in something, in the work that you do or an interest that you have. And I think that's an important part to remember. Storytelling, as you said, is also a big part of all of this. We're made for stories as people, and
Yeah.
we relate to stories. And you brought up Aristotle. He lived quite a long time ago, and stories have been around ever since we've been able to communicate. So that's a really important part. And then, of course, the words. So how do we prepare to make a captivating speech? How do we think about the words that we want to say, and how do we prepare ahead of time, especially as introverts?
Well, the way I do it, and the way I recommend that people do it, is actually that they find out what's important to people, the actual audience. So I would recommend that people actually telephone 2 or 3 of the audience participants, if that's possible, and then you get a general feeling of the lay of the land, how the people, the mood that people come in, or the level of motivation that they might have. And by finding out a bit about them, they're not completely new to you. They're not strangers anymore. And that's really useful as an introvert, because if you know people, and if you've maybe had a more of a personal chat with them, then the level of confidence, certainly which I have, is higher. And then the second thing would be the key take home message. What's the point? I like to give them the metaphor of sitting in a pub after my presentation, and there are 2 of the people who have been in the presentation, and one asks the other over his glass of really cool beer, "So what did this guy John talk about then?" And if she or he can answer the question in a succinct and clear way, and it was in fact the same thing that I said, then I've done a good job. In other words, the main take-home message is, for me, a hugely important thing, no matter how long a presentation is. You think of Martin Luther King with his one key take-home message of wanting to have this vision of people being working, being able to be together no matter what the color of their skin. That's the key message.
Yeah.
A big key message. And you mentioned the words. sounds a bit weird, but I think I would collect the words which I think would be useful, but I wouldn't try to learn them. I would more go with my intuition and know that the words would come to me at the right time.
Okay. So you're saying you don't script it all out, but how do you prepare? Like, is there things that you recommend, especially for introverts, to prepare ahead of time and think about the things they want to say, even if that's not scripted out?
Yeah, what I personally like is to use a mind map.
Okay.
A mind map, basically, if you have a basic idea here, the key take-home message, and then the different points of that take-home message, which come out as a bit like a star, and then depending on the level of detail that you have, you can make this quite a sophisticated star, and use that as a type of crib card, really. So that's, and then I would literally have this in front of me and not feel bad if occasionally I refer to it. I don't think it's bad if I look down and say, "Oh, just a sec, David. I've forgotten what I want to say next." People are basically quite kind, I think, because they know when you present that you're under a bit of pressure, maybe.
Yeah. So how do you help introverts, or how do introverts gain confidence and not be so nervous about giving presentations and speeches?
Mm. Mhm. Well, one thing I think is to have a crystal clear structure. The crystal clear structure helps them to know how they're going to say what they're going to say, because it's horrible being in a position where you don't know what you're going to say next. And the clear structure is a very simple one which I use, and it's, you have a basic idea and then three sub ideas. And I call it a pyramid structure. It's really simple, and it's used by people like Jeff Bezos from Amazon, and that is idiot proof in creating a core idea. The other thing is, and this sounds a bit school teacher like, is I get people to practice and record it and practice until it's sort of in their blood. And the third thing I would do is, I would make sure that when you've got this structure in the middle, this is the core idea, they have a really good intro and a really good outro. The outro preceded by the key message, and so a good intro which is different from others, followed by the key idea of the presentation with the three spokes, or it could be in more detail with more detail below the three key ideas, and then a really nice outro with a call to action, so people know what you're expecting them to do.
I want to get back to, you mentioned the importance of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a good story? How do you choose your stories as a presenter?
Yeah, I think a story needs to be emotionally interesting and is relevant to the people who you're speaking to. So I think it's important to know the audience and to be able to tell a story which is which has a problem behind it. The story of me and the little kid when I was hiding in the cupboard, that's a sort of hero's journey type story where you have this little guy who doesn't know on earth what to do. He hides, and then he goes through the whole of his life thinking, "Oh shit, how can I be better?
Yeah.
How can I not be so screwed up?" And then at the end, he's able to see that maybe he wasn't screwed up in the first place. He was okay as he was. And so it's just a question of finding the jewel within us. There's a wonderful story of the Buddha. This is a nice story, and it's a true one. There was this golden Buddha that they had, and this was in Tibet, and they knew that this golden Buddha was going to be stolen by incoming troops. And so what they did was they covered this up in plaster of Paris, and so it was not to be seen. You couldn't actually see that this was gold and very, very valuable. And I can't remember the details of the story, but a long time later, somebody saw that there was this shape, and it would be interesting to see what's underneath. And of course, when they did that, it revealed this amazing statue of the golden Buddha. And so, that would be the way in which I would see a really good story, ending, with the idea of there's nothing wrong with you, you're okay, and it's just a question of seeing what's inside, rather than thinking, how can I get more material objects. I think that's how I'd answer that question.
Yeah. And definitely thank you for sharing your story today, your own hero's journey. So that's amazing. You're now focusing on introverts. How would you characterize the difference in your courses? How has your courses changed to focus on introverts?
I think I need to be a bit more, a bit careful about the way in which I use language. I think it's important to, again, create a good atmosphere. That's the same for extroverts. For introverts, I think they have to be given time to settle down, but then to sort of help them to become really active in a presentation. If they're more active, then they're able to create more energy and enthusiasm in themselves, and then it's a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. When they feel more energetic, more enthusiasm, then it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and so they're able to transfer this to their audiences too. So a sort of slow start, I think, and then showing them that if you bring more energy into a presentation, not only do you feel better about it as an introvert presenter, but the audience get more involved, and they sit there on the edge of their seats and not playing with their mobile phone.
Yeah, right. Okay. John, we've talked about a lot of great things today. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't hit on yet?
There is actually, and I've not talked about this to anybody, David, and that is, there's a big why behind what I do too, a big why. And my big why is not only teaching people, to feel great about presenting, but I have this idea of helping people, particularly in England, who are teenagers, who are depressed, and that they're a bit lost, really. And I would like to teach them this idea of the 3 principles, to help them to see that they are really okay too. So that would be a final thing that I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely needed. Definitely needed. So, John, where can people find out more about your work, working with you, your workshops, or your book?
Yes. Well, at the moment, they could find out about that on johndoorbar.com. That's where my website is. And at the moment, I'm just in the process of creating a new website on on a platform which is called Learn Worlds. And I must admit, I'm not quite sure exactly what the actual title of that will be yet. It's really going to be finished in 2 weeks. But if they look at johndoorbar.com and contact me via the telephone number there, or send me an email, then I will make sure that when my new website is up, then I will contact them and send them the current details. That's not a very good marketing trick, is it, David? But that's just reality.
I will put your current website in the show notes, and of course, we'll look forward to seeing what's next for you.
That's great, David. Thanks for asking me the question, and thanks for inviting me. It's been really great.
Yeah, thank you, John. This has been a great conversation.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to further connecting with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the quietandstrong.com website, which includes blog posts, links to social media, and other items. Send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. If you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there's now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including the 4-letter Myers-Briggs code. I'll add a link to the show notes. There's so many great things about being an introvert, so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.